Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one. The introduction. The small town of Millstone lay nestled between rolling hills, its quaint streets whispering tales of a bygone era. Red brick buildings lined the main road, their worn facades a testament to decades of history. But beneath this picture-perfect exterior lurked shadows that had begun to clutch at the town's heart. Every Thursday evening, a community meeting took place at the local library, and this particular evening felt different. The air was thick with palpable tension. Residents shuffled in, eyes darting nervously to avoid each other's gaze. Just 2 days earlier, a young woman had been reported missing, her absence weighing heavily on the townsfolk. As the librarian, Mrs. Harper, struck the bell for silence, the murmurs ceased. The room was dimly lit, save for the flickering fluorescent lights overhead, making the faces of the attendees appear ghostly in the glow. Their expressions, hardened by worry, were etched with the understanding that something had shifted in their peaceful community. Fear had taken root. Among them was Detective Laura Bennett, a longtime Millstone resident who had returned from the city after years away. She could feel the collective anxiety tightening like a noose around her throat. Years of policing had taught her one thing. Every case had a story, and tonight, the town was a canvas on which that story would unfold. The library filled with silence as she stood to speak, ready to inspire courage, yet aware that the dark undercurrents of Millstone ran deeper than most could perceive. The victim. Megan Sullivan was a name that echoed in the hearts of Millstone's residents long before her disappearance. A vibrant 22-year-old with dreams of becoming a journalist, she had captured the essence of the town through her articles in the local paper, the Millstone Gazette. Her voice was unmistakable, her passion infectious, and her absence had carved a void that felt insurmountable. As the search for Megan began in earnest, her friends gathered at a coffee shop down the street from the library, a cozy nook adorned with mismatched furniture and the rich scent of freshly brewed coffee. They sat huddled together in a corner booth, their expressions a mix of worry and disbelief. It was hard to imagine a world without Megan's laughter, without her eager questions and relentless curiosity about everything that life had to offer. "Do you think she's okay?" Rachel whispered, barely audible over the soft murmur of patrons. The others remained silent, each grappling with a sense of dread. A once bright future now felt desolate and uncertain. News of her disappearance flickered through the town like a storm cloud overhead, casting shadows in the radiance of a summer that had once promised new beginnings. As nature's beauty glowed outside, a sinister reality gripped the town. The police canvassed her last known whereabouts, leading them back to the very path she loved, often wandering alone with her note. Bennett knew that the key to understanding what had happened to Megan lay in the unassuming details of her life. The love she shared with her family, the friendships, and now, potentially, the threat stirred beneath. The crime scene. Rain began to fall softly as Detective Laura Bennett approached the secluded woodland area where Megan had last been seen. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and pine, the rhythmic patter of raindrops creating a somber backdrop to the scene unfolding before her. A police tape marked the perimeter of the area, fluttering like a ghostly banner in the cool wind. Each step she took felt weighted, as if she could sense the embedded tension hanging in the air. Among the scattered leaves, the earth bore the faintest traces of disturbance-dislodged soil. A slight depression. It wasn't much, but it was a broken promise of a peaceful life interrupted. The forensics team meticulously examined the area, their movements deliberate, uncovering what little evidence they could without disturbing the sanctity of whatever had transpired. Laura's hand brushed against her badge, a habitual gesture that reminded her of the duty she owed to Megan to find the truth, no matter how painful it might be. As she surveyed the landscape, she noticed the remnants of a torn piece of fabric snagged on a nearby tree branch. A vibrant blue. It matched one of Megan's favorite tops, the kind she would have worn on a summer evening out with friends. The sight tightened Laura's stomach. The world of possibilities now reduced to this mere scrap, a painful reminder of hope fading quickly into despair. The rain picked up, the droplets tapping harder against the leaves, drowning out her thoughts as they became entangled with the reality that someone in this tranquil town was capable of darkness. And it would be her job to find out who. The early investigation. Back at the Millstone police station, the atmosphere buzzed with urgency. Detective Bennett spread Megan's photo across the cluttered desk, her heart aching at the vibrant smile captured in that single frame. She pulled together her thoughts, pacing gently as other officers scoured the numerous leads that began to trickle in. The room filled with the sound of ringing phones and rustling papers, punctuated by the occasional turmoil of officers sharing snippets of information. Megan was seen here last at the coffee shop, Officer Daniels spoke, looking over his notes. Seemed she was meeting someone. The words hung heavy in the air, amplifying the uncertainty that had begun to erode the fabric of the town. Whispers of a potential lead drew everyone closer, a sliver of hope emerging from the fog of confusion. As information flowed in, the detective could see voyeuristic glances exchanged among colleagues. They all understood the implications of a meeting shrouded in secrecy. An intimate rendezvous could turn sinister in the blink of an eye. The officers sifted through surveillance footage from the shop, eyes glued to screens as the cafe buzzed with life. Each familiar face, each aqueous form that appeared in the frames, only amplified the sense of invasion into the closed community. The search extended beyond the coffee shop. Megan's friends were interviewed, her social media meticulously examined. Through the glowing glow of computer screens, a digital portrait of her life emerged, revealing friendships, aspirations, and ominously, a few troubling messages. Once innocent banter now twisted into red flags that haunted the room. Hours passed as Laura lingered over the connections being uncovered. The chatter of the station morphed into a backdrop, a cacophony that propelled her deeper into a relentless determination to untangle the threads of Megan's life. The dead ends. The days turned into a blur as the investigation trudged forward. But hope began to fade like the sunlight retreating behind the clouds. Detective Bennett sat across from her team, a map sprawled before them, marked with pins representing known sightings of Megan. Each pin came with a little story, yet so many led to dead ends. Another witness from the park, but he didn't see anything out of the ordinary. Sir Daniel sighed as he tossed his notes down on the table. It was becoming painfully clear that the town's once normal rhythms had shifted into a fraying pattern of fear and uncertainty. Each so-called lead unraveling, each mention of a potential sighting merely widening the circle of despair. Laura rubbed her temples, frustration mounting. We need to shift our focus, she asserted, determination igniting in her voice. However, instinctually, she knew that pivoting would only lead to the same frustrations if they couldn't draw connections between Megan's life and her disappearance. The casual nature of friendships and fond meetings now felt tainted. No one was immune from suspicion. Digging deeper, she turned to Megan's social media history again, scrutinizing every word, flipping through threads of conversations. Fotoshi stumbled across a group chat filled with messages about a party, a gathering of her social circle, where secrets may have spiraled into deeper turmoil. But as she reached out to the friends, responses were evasive. No one wanted to stir deep-seated drama. Perhaps too much was at risk, including friendships and reputations. The sense of isolation burrowed deeper into Laura's chest. The more they uncovered, the less certainty remained. In her mind's eye, the image of Megan's bright smile began to fade, and the haunted faces of her buddies reflected back at her, apprehensive and scarred by their own uncertainty of what lay beneath. A break in the case. In the early hours of dawn, as the town of Millstone lay in a fragile stillness, a glimmer of hope arrived in the form of an unexpected phone call. Detective Bennett's eyes snapped open to the harsh buzz of her cell phone, its screen illuminating the darkened room like a beacon in the fog. Detective Bennett, the voice on the other end, hesitated before continuing. I have information about Megan. The urgency in the caller's tone sent a wave of adrenaline coursing through Laura's veins, awakening her senses. She rushed to gather her thoughts, the remnants of sleep evaporating as she leaned in closer to the sound of the voice that had become a lifeline. I saw her near the woods just a few days ago. The informant, a local who occasionally walked his dog, began to recount hesitantly. She was with someone, a guy I didn't recognize. They looked tense, like they were arguing. Gripping the phone tightly, Laura's heart raced. This could be the first actionable lead since the investigation ignited. Did you see where they went? Laura pressed, her voice steady yet edged with urgency. The man described a path deeper into the woods that evening, a place marked by silence and shadows that flickered with troubling implications. As she scribbled down the details, a surge of determination welled up within. Minutes later, Laura called a team of officers to regroup. They gathered in the station, anxious energy pulsing through the room as she relayed the new information. Suddenly, a shared focus ignited their spirits. The team mobilized swiftly, grabbing flashlights and gear, ready to scour the wooded area where the confrontation had taken place. The promise of a breakthrough hung in the air, a fragile thread woven through the grief and uncertainty that had swirled around the town. The suspect. The sun hung low in the sky, casting elongated shadows as Detective Bennett and her team maneuvered carefully along the wooded path the informant had described. Each crack of a twig underfoot echoed like a reminder of the dark purpose, pulling them deeper into the thicket. The air felt electrically charged, a sense of revelation teetering on the brink of discovery. As they reached a clearing, the officers fanned out, scanning the underbrush for any sign scuff marks, remnants of clothing, anything that might provide clarity. Laura's heart raced as she directed them, desperately hoping this time their efforts would yield more than mere fragments of Megan's story. "Over here!" Officer Daniels shouted from just beyond a cluster of trees. Laura rushed over, her pulse quickening. He crouched next to a pile of freshly disturbed leaves and pointed. Underneath lay an unassuming watch, a piece of jewelry that didn't belong to Megan but to someone else entirely, a man who could have been her last company. With that clue in hand, the investigation took a swift turn. The size and style of the watch were quickly linked to a local resident, Jack Harmon, known for his erratic behavior and a history of unresolved dispute. Conversations she'd had with friends revealed whispers of Jack, a man who had often shown a troubling interest in Megan. Bennett ordered a team to bring Jack in for questioning. The tension around the station thickened as early rumors circulated. Whispers turned into sharper glances exchanged among the officers. Jack had a reputation as a local troublemaker, a person everyone slowly learned to avoid. Yet no one had connected the dots until now. When Jack arrived, he wore an expression of practiced nonchalance, his demeanor oddly untroubled. But the air grew thick when Laura laid out her evidence, watching as the certainty of guilt flickered in his eyes, masked only by a veneer of bravado. The tension in the room crackled, and she knew the next moments could lead to a breakthrough or a deeper twist in the chilling tale of Megan's fate. The trial. The small courtroom in Millstone was packed, an atmosphere of tangible tension hanging thick in the air as townsfolk gathered to witness the proceedings that had gripped their community for months. The wooden benches groaned under the weight of anxious bodies, eyes glued toward the front as the judge entered, the gavel striking loudly to call the room to order. Jack Harmon sat at the defendant's table, a far cry from the brazen demeanor he had worn during his interrogation. Today, his shoulders were slumped, eyes cast downward, shadows playing across his face, offering little comfort to those assembled. Detective Bennett, seated in the back, watched intently, her heart heavy with a mixture of hope and the familiar ache of unresolved trauma that had haunted her since Megan's disappearance. Over the course of the trial, testimonies unfolded. Friends spoke of Megan's vibrant spirit and the shattering impact her absence had left on their lives. They painted a vivid picture of the woman an entire town desperately missed. The prosecution laid out evidence, weaving the threads of Megan's last known hours and Jack's concerning history into a narrative that left little doubt. Just when it seemed clarity would reign, the defense struck back. Jack's lawyer, a skilled orator, interjected doubt, subtly pushing the notion that the evidence against Jack was circumstantial. His arguments twisted like smoke, attempting to cast shadows on the most haunting moments of the trial. Laura felt her heart sink as Jack's past, once tangled in whispers, now threatened to overshadow the urgency of justice. Each day of testimony felt like an unrelenting journey through grief, and Laura clung to her conviction. The jury deliberated, and when they returned, silence enveloped the room, breaths held in anticipation. The verdict delivered could rewrite the narrative of Millstone's very identity. As the words "guilty" echoed through the courtroom, it felt like both a conclusion and a beginning. Closure for some, while leaving others grappling with the aftermath of the stark reality that would follow. The aftermath. In the weeks following the verdict, Millstone bore the weight of its collective grief in a heavy silence. The once vibrant energy of the small town was marred by the shadows of the recent trial, where the ghost of Megan Sullivan lingered in every corner. Detective Bennett returned to the everyday grind of her work, but the familiarity of the task felt foreign, as if draped in an invisible shroud of sorrow. The community's response echoed through the streets. Vigils were held in Megan's honor, flowers and candles lining the park where she had laughed with friends and scribbled notes in her journal. Town meetings resumed, but conversations felt angular, often circling back to the jagged edges of what they had lost. The question of why clawed at their hearts, leaving scars that would never fully heal. As Laura walked the familiar streets of Millstone, she caught glimpses of street-side conversations, fearful glances shared between neighbors, and the quiet anxiety that came with knowing darkness had touched them. The increase in locks, security systems, and whispered worries about the next one indicated the town's uneasy attempt to reclaim a sense of safety that had been stripped away. The police station remained busy but somber, officers now tasked with bridging the rift that Megan's disappearance had crystallized within the town. Laura found herself often lingering at her desk, sorting through the miniature cases that now felt mundane compared to the weight of what had transpired. Yet, with each new case, she recognized the power of resolution, a sense of purpose welding her resolve. Even as time passed, cracks remained. The town would never be wholly unchanged, its innocence lost. Yet the pulse of community continued to beat beneath the surface, echoing a deep-rooted resilience. Life in Millstone, forever altered, would bear witness to the legacy of a bright spirit who had forever changed their understanding of trust, vulnerability, and the value of every shared moment. Reflection. As the seasons changed, so did the family of Millstone. Detective Laura Bennett often found solace in the cool autumn evenings, reflecting on the events that had reshaped the town and the lives intertwined within it. The leaves turned from vibrant green to brittle gold, mirroring the shift in the hearts of those affected by Megan's fate. Conversations that once flowed freely were now intricately woven with pauses and carefully chosen words. Whispers of regret, remembrance, and resilience occupied every gathering. Laura had observed how victims like Megan shifted the very essence of their communities. They became symbols of loss and light, urging their neighbors to unravel the darkness more vigilantly. Standing at the park where the flowers still adorned the ground, Laura felt a bittersweet sense of peace wash over her. It was a reminder that moments shared mattered, and those left behind had the power to keep their memory alive. Megan's laughter might have faded from the air, but the lessons learned would ripple through Millstone, urging residents to remain alert and supportive, to cherish the fragile nature of life. As she turned homeward, she resolved to continue her work, now embraced by a greater purpose than before. The complexity of loss had given way to an enriched understanding of community. Through darkness, they would shine brighter, ensuring that Megan and others like her were never forgotten.